Hi, I'm Corey Johnson with Towleroad.com, and I am with David Mixner, a legendary activist, not just in the gay rights community, but also in the civil rights community. David called for the National Equality March back in May, and it is now Columbus Day weekend. The march is going to be here tomorrow. With everything that's going on and the president addressing the Human Rights Campaign dinner tonight, the march occurring tomorrow, what are your thoughts about this weekend?
Well, I think it's already a successful. We don't know how many marchers are going to come. But anyone who's in this city and can see the tens of thousands of young people who've showed up for their first march and who are so excited and so filled with joy, no one would question the need for this march.
This is the fifth gay rights march that's occurred in our nation's history, or the one on Washington, National March. And this march is different because the movement is in a different place now than it's ever been before. You've been involved in many marches. How would you compare this in the organization, in the planning, in the initiation to other marches that happened?
Well, it's totally different and unique. This is the first internet march. We didn't even have an office. We didn't have a staff. Our budget was $259,000. But more importantly, Corey, it's a paradigm shift. This is the first march of the Prop 8 generation. And what we're seeing is the emergence of young new leadership who are impatient, who don't understand why we have to wait for our freedom. And so this march is sort of the calling card of the students and the young people that we so desperately wanted to get involved. And now they have gotten involved, and we should be supporting them.
With Proposition 8, in the wake of Proposition 8, as you just said, a whole new generation of young people are now involved. Does that threaten sort of the totem pole that's been created in Washington and nationally with the gay rights group like HRC? And things are much more decentralized now. You write a daily blog. How does it change the movement moving forward?
Well, I think that I don't know if it threatens people, but fear is a motivator. Change causes fear. Any kind of change. Obama over Hillary, Obama over McCain. Change is something that people don't adapt to well. And the fact that this march was done totally outside of Washington with no office, through computers, through phone calls, conference calls, and actually will succeed, people don't understand what's happening. And so, yes, I think it creates some fear and misunderstanding and miscommunication. But what is clear is that these young people are not going to listen to a message of be patient, wait 5 years, or allow the political back rooms to piecemeal our justice and our freedom out at their political convenience.
This march is happening with the hate crimes bill that was attached to the defense authorization bill last week, or this past week. The president, it looks like, is going to sign it this upcoming, which would be the first piece of federal inclusive LGBT legislation. And then ENDA is on the schedule too, coming up in the fall. Barney Frank this past week spoke out against the march, and then sort of gave us a timeline of when he thinks things are going to get done. What are your thoughts with all the angst that's occurred with the Obama administration and the Democratic Congress not passing things quickly? With this march happening, what's your outlook legislatively for the future moving forward in the next 6 months?
Well, first of all, you can't timeline freedom. It's not something you can put on a chart and say you'll get this much freedom in March and this much freedom in June, and then maybe we'll give you a little more freedom in December. Freedom is absolute. And it's something we already have, and that we're trying to protect others from taking it away from us. And let's not forget that. I said, second of all, that I think it's very, very important to understand that we seem to be having gay weeks in the administration. The first gay week was in June, and we had a party, and we got a medal, and we got federal employee benefits, but without health insurance and pensions. And that was a direct result of them trying to make up for the Department of Justice brief. Now we're having a second gay week. Now, I find it extremely ironic that all these things, a gay ambassador speaking to the dinner, hate crimes suddenly busting through the House just as the march arrives in town. If anything, I think they ought to write the march a thank you note.
You said in your blog this past week that you would think that HRC wouldn't invite the president unless the president had something new to say to the gay community, to the nation as a whole, as it comes to LGBT Americans. And you suggested maybe that the president will speak out against Question 1 in Maine, which is the community is focusing on. Do you think that could actually happen tonight, that we'll hear something new besides what we've heard recited in the past from President Obama?
Well, if we don't hear it, it will be a disaster both for the president and HRC. The fact of the matter is inconceivable to me, with people already voting absentee in Maine, that the President of the United States would not take a strong and firm and unequivocating position against that proposition. And also Washington, the state of Washington. And why anybody would be allowed to speak before us and not talk about those two initiatives would baffle me beyond belief. I believe he's going to do it. I deeply believe that he cannot conceivably come to this dinner. And if they don't address Maine and they don't address Washington, it will be a disaster. And if he do, we should sing his praises, because I think his endorsement in Maine and Washington could be a couple points, and maybe a couple points to victory for us.
You were President Clinton's one of his leading advisors in the 92 campaign, and this past month we saw him speak to Anderson Cooper on CNN from the Clinton Global Initiative. He came out and he said he was supportive of marriage because of gay friends that he has and speaking with them. Back in 93, you were arrested outside the White House protesting what happened, the quote-unquote compromise on Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Two questions. Don't Ask, Don't Tell, it's still in place 16 years later, though it seems like we're seeing some progress on it. And President Clinton, after signing the Defense of Marriage Act in 96, now has come around to marriage equality. What are your thoughts on that after witnessing this entire journey from 93 up until 2009?
Well, first we have to remember it's 16 years from 93, and we were just happy that Clinton would use the word gay in 1993, and we're a long way from that. Second of all, I'm going to say something that I never thought I'd say. President Obama, listen to the Clintons. And third, I think it's very, very important to understand that the president doesn't have to wait for legislation to end Don't Ask, Don't Tell from Congress. He can do two things now. He can cut off all federal funding of the persecution and the prosecution of gays and lesbians in the military. If there's no money to prosecute, they can't do it. There's no lawyers, there's no judges, they're forbidden by law because there are no funds to spend. I think the American people would much rather have those funds spent on their children's education. Number two, he can issue a stop-loss order. We have soldiers exhausted from fighting in 2 wars. We need every person we've got to help support our men in uniform and women in uniform. And so he can do those two things right now. You know, I didn't elect President Obama for Congress to lead him. I elected him so he would lead Congress. And it looks like he's waiting for them to take action on everything. I want him to lead.
And Majority Leader Harry Reid said 2 weeks ago he would move forward on Don't Ask, Don't Tell if President Obama would take a leadership role on that.
Well, exactly. I mean, it's like they're throwing this volleyball back and forth. Not me. You'd get it. President Obama not only promised that he would change all these policies, he promised us as a nation that he would change the way that we do things in this country, and that we believed very strongly that that meant strong, firm, moral leadership out of a deep set of values and principles. And I'm going to hold him to that, and that foremost among those values and principles has to be the freedom of every single American.
Lastly, you're going to be speaking at the march tomorrow. You were the person with Cleve. Even before Cleve, you called for this march to take place, and you talked about the young people that it's inspired. What is your message to young LGBT people who are first getting involved in politics, in the movement, who have come to Washington, who aren't able to be here, but are watching what's going on? What's your message to young lesbian, gay, transgender, bisexual Americans that are witnessing either here in D.C. or on television what's happening this weekend?
I believe in you. I believe in your politics. I believe in your values. And I believe you have the potential to be great leaders. And I am willing to do everything I can to support you.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
I'm Corey Johnson for Towleroad.com with legendary gay rights activist David Mixner.